VIOLETTE1ST, Turkey Day Party. Introduction. Hello there, welcome to another VIOLETTE1ST video. This is a Thanksgiving special about Violette hosting a Thanksgiving party. Main characters, Violette, Bill and William. Violette is the mother, Bill is the father. William is Violette and Bill's teenage son. One quick thing, if I refer to something called the boys, I am referring to Bill and William. I am using this as a shorter term. That is all I have to say, enjoy the story. Plot. It is a peaceful November 26th evening in Mount Airy, Maryland. Violette is making a list for a Thanksgiving party she is hosting tomorrow for Thanksgiving. A few minutes later Violette finishes making the list. Violette then calls for the boys. A few seconds later William speeds into the kitchen. 1 minute later Bill strolls into the kitchen. A few seconds later Violette tells the boys her game plan for Turkey Day. A few minutes later Violette and the boys head to bed. 8 hours later Violette and William walk downstairs for breakfast. 1 minute later Violette and William tuck into some bran flakes. A few minutes later Bill walks into the living room. 3 seconds later Bill opens the fridge. A few seconds later Bill grabs an entire 1.4-pound grilled pork tenderloin. A few seconds later Bill starts eating his meat like a wild boar. 3 minutes later Bill finishes. A few seconds later Violette and William place their bowls into the trash. A few seconds later Violette says they have 4 hours to get ready. 20 minutes later Violette and the boys meet up in the living room after getting ready for the day. A few seconds later Violette says they are leaving for Party City. A few seconds later Violette and the boys walk out to Violette's SUV. 2 minutes later they speed off to the closest Party City. A few minutes later Violette parks the SUV. A few seconds later Bill spots Dave and Buster's. 1 second later Bill charges towards Dave and Buster's. 1 second later Violette tells William they have shopping to do. A few seconds later Violette and William grab a shopping cart. A few seconds later they enter the Party City. 2 minutes later Violette and William start shopping for party supplies. 10 minutes later they check out. A few minutes later Violette pays for the groceries. A few minutes later Violette and William walk into a Whole Foods to grab some food that Violette ordered for the party. A few minutes later they pay for the supplies. 3 minutes later they start loading the trunk of the SUV with food and party supplies. 3 minutes later Violette tells William to get into the SUV. A few seconds later Violette watches William buckle up. 1 second later Violette says she is gonna be getting Bill. A few seconds later Violette walks into the Dave and Buster's. 10 minutes later Violette walks out of the Dave and Buster's while several people help her drag her 400-pound husband by the arms. A few minutes later Violette pays the helpers $40 each. 2 minutes later Violette and the boys speed home. 10 minutes later Violette and William start to bring in the groceries. 5 minutes later Violette and William unpack and put the food away. 10 minutes later Violette and William start to decorate the house for their party. An hour later they finish decorating. A few seconds later Violette and William join Bill to watch some Clone Wars. 2 hours later Violette speeds into the kitchen to get food ready for the 3 guests that are coming over. 20 minutes later Violette finishes setting out the snacks for the party. A few minutes later the first guest arrives. 1 second later William hugs his best friend Rod. A few minutes later Bill's father Brian arrives. 1 second later Bill hugs Brian. 5 minutes later Violette's mum Janny and father Willie arrive. A few seconds later Violette hugs Janny and Willie. 5 seconds later the party begins. An hour later Violette says the lunch is ready. A few seconds later Violette, William, Rod, Brian, Janny, and Willie grab their food. 3 minutes later Bill starts to eat the food that remains. A few seconds later Violette, William and the party guests eat their food, while Bill hoovers over 30 pounds of food. 20 minutes later everyone finished eating. A few seconds later Bill licks the pans clean. 5 minutes later Bill throws away the pans. A few seconds later the party guests say grace for their meal. A few minutes later Rod, Brian, Janny, and Willie leave. A few seconds later Violette and William start to clean up. The end. Conclusion. Hello there, I hope you enjoyed this VIOLETTE1ST holiday special. More holiday specials to come. Bye for now.